This is your final chance to achieve the grades that you deserve in your GCSEs or A-levels. If you feel behind, stressed, or like you've already messed it up, don't worry, you haven't. But these last few weeks are absolutely crucial and they will determine everything. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, you have very little time, but if you use that time in the right way, then you can save your exams. And here is exactly how. For a bit of context, I think I should give some advice about motivation and how to fuel yourself to actually revise to your full capacity during this time, just before your exams and even during the exam season if you get study leave. And it's important to understand why you want to do well in your exams and why you're doing this whole thing. For me, it was that I wanted to just make myself proud. I wanted to make my family proud. I wanted to prove to myself that I can commit myself to doing something difficult and, achieving it and following through. Whatever your motivation is, stick with it, write it down in your notes app or on a piece of paper, and make sure that message sticks with you because it will keep you going throughout the exam season. During my GCSEs, I would count down the days or the weeks or the months until I would be finished with my exams and I would literally never have to study English or geography ever again in my life, and that would fuel me. This is something that J Spark mentions in his video on this topic. Just think about how much time you've put in studying for literal years, waking up early and spending hours and hours in school just for this. It only makes sense to make all of that time worthwhile by getting the top grades that you know you're capable of achieving. So I'm not going to waste your time, let me get straight into the advice. Tip number 1 is stop trying to do everything. I'm the kind of person who tries to aim for completeness in whatever I do. When it came to revision, I soon realized that it would be quite unrealistic for me to try and revise every single thing super thoroughly in the lead up to my exams. And also it would be unrealistic for me to try and do every single past paper in every single subject. I think that the number 1 tip you should take away from this video, if there's one thing that you take away, it's that you should prioritize ruthlessly. I mentioned this in previous videos, but you need to make sure that you're listing out the subjects that you're doing the weakest in, and then within those subjects, listing out the topics that you drop the most marks on, and you can use your past assessments and tests to identify these topics. And within those topics, look at some past paper questions and understand which of those questions do you struggle with the most. If you start with this bottom-up approach of starting with the most difficult stuff and then working your way up to the less difficult stuff, then trust me, you'll be making the best use of your time, because those hours spent studying will have a way more of an impact than spending hours studying a topic you are decently good at and you're just doing it because it makes you feel confident in your abilities. It's important to identify what's most difficult for you and starting with that stuff first, even though it's probably quite uncomfortable. Those topics, you probably don't like them, you probably want to avoid them, but everyone has topics like that, and the people that do the best are the ones who tackle them head on and don't avoid certain subjects or topics just because they don't really like them. Make sure you're looking at past papers and you're focusing on which topics come up every single year without fail. For example, for English literature, you want to look through all of the past papers and understand what kind of questions they've asked every year for each novel. And then based on that, kind of predict which kind of characters could they ask me a question on, or which kind of themes. And based on that, prepare your revision, do some practice plans. And yeah, I have my full video on English literature linked above if you want to watch that. But make sure you understand what kind of questions are realistic, because oftentimes, especially with a book like Macbeth or any kind of novel, there are certain characters and certain themes that are unlikely to come up in an exam because these characters might not be super central to the plot. So prioritize and start with the stuff that is honestly just most likely to come up in the exam. Tip number 2 is practice over notes. If at this point you're still making notes, you need to stop. I mean, I think I've mentioned this many times before, but making notes is genuinely a waste of time in general. There are some nuances to that, and there are some instances where making notes is useful, but I would say the extent to which a lot of people make notes and try to make comprehensive notes, especially on many whole topics in their subjects, just because it feels like, they're doing something productive, or they're, again, aiming for completeness in their revision. It's not actually useful. What is useful is practicing and recalling that information using active recall. If you're using a flashcard app like Anki, or if you're using physical flashcards, or even what I often do is look at textbooks and cover it up, or try and discuss it with a friend or a family member. Those kinds of things will really help you in the long term because it actually makes the information stick. just reading it does not make it stick. And this has been proven very extensively in research. An important tip on making your flashcards and doing active recall is use the mark schemes, especially for a subject like computer science. I've noticed that I literally just had to learn the mark scheme. Textbooks were definitely useful, my exercise book notes were useful, but what was most useful was the mark scheme, because sometimes year on year they would have slightly strange points in the mark schemes and they came up time and time again for the similar questions, and I would just literally copy the mark scheme into a flashcard on Anki and revise it from there. And it was foolproof. I had friends who did this and got exceptionally high marks in their final GCSEs. So I would definitely recommend using mark schemes, especially for a subject like geography, computer science, history, those kinds of subjects. Tip number 3 is to structure your revision well. This is kind of an obvious point, but I think there's nuance to it. You've got a few weeks left, and that is dozens and dozens of study sessions if you plan your time correctly. Don't try to make your study sessions too long. Maybe, well, it really depends on who you are, but 60 to 90 minutes is a good number, and make sure you take actual useful breaks, not just scrolling on your phone in the same place. Like, get up, stretch, have a bite to eat or drink some water. Make sure that you are doing these kinds of things because they actually refresh your brain. And again, there's research to prove this. So you'll actually be able to study for longer and you'll retain the information for a longer period of time. Mix your subjects as well. Don't try to do a full day of a single subject. I typically did a mix between 2 or 3 subjects per day, picking out topics that I thought I needed to revise with the highest priority. And again, I think the way that you structure your days is super important. In the morning or in the earlier hours of the day, you should have an idea of which topics you need to tackle immediately, like your urgent topics you're not fully confident on. Before you start studying, before you do anything, make a list of the topics across all of your subjects which you don't feel confident on, because everyone has topics that they don't feel 100% on, or they feel like, oh, if I was examined on this right now, I'm not sure how I would perform. So write those down and start with those over anything else. Don't try to start from chapter 1, because every time you go to revise from chapter 1 for a certain subject, you get really good at chapter 1, but you never get to chapter 9. So prioritize and focus on the things that you struggle with the most first. And then in the afternoon or in the later hours of the day, it's quite useful to obviously do a practice paper, because you're not learning new information necessarily, you're just applying it. And I think it's just a good way to finish off your revision for the day, and then you can relax in the evening. Tip number 4 is to shift your mindset. Given that it is very close to your exams, it can be quite daunting. You might feel like, you're cooked and you won't be able to recover your grades and you can't be saved and all of this stuff. Just don't tell yourself that you're too far behind, because that will almost manifest itself. If you stop feeling confident, you feel like it's over for you already. I felt like at many points during my GCSE revision journey, I remember thinking, I'm not gonna make it. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get the grades. I don't know if I'm gonna have a panic attack in my exam. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I don't feel confident in my abilities to sit these exams. And that happened so many times. And I thought about all the time that I'd wasted scrolling or being unproductive or just wasting hours for no reason. But you have to understand that nobody is perfect and no one is 100% productive. So don't beat yourself up too much if you're not, reaching every single goal you set for yourself. Especially with revision timetables, they are very difficult to stick to. Do try your best, but no one's perfect. So don't aim for perfection, just aim for getting the most done as you can, because it can be a slippery slope. If you start to feel like you're behind, then you won't feel motivated to do work, and then you'll fall even more behind and the cycle continues. You're not cooked, you're just under pressure, but pressure makes diamonds.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the?
Tip number 5, and I've kind of alluded to this before, but take care of your health, especially your sleep. Don't pull all-nighters before your exams. It's not a good idea. Cramming at 2 a.m, 3 a.m. is not going to help you. You won't be able to retain that information properly. Sleep has been proven to be almost like a save button for your brain to retain all of that information that you've learnt in the day. So I think a minimum should be 7 hours, but It differs for different people, and there's a lot of factors that you need to consider. So if you're the kind of person who knows that they need at least 8.5, 9 hours per night of sleep, please stick to that. The revision is important, but your sleep will actually make the revision worth it. Exams are obviously starting very soon for many of you, and for me included. So all I have to say is this is the final push. These next few weeks of revision are literally the most important revision you'll ever do. Put all of your effort into it so that you can properly enjoy your summer and you won't regret it on results day. I'd say you shouldn't aim to feel 100% confident and ready for every exam that you sit. Just aim to feel as prepared as you possibly can and just try to stay calm. An important thing to do is visualization. Close your eyes and imagine yourself sitting in the exam hall, opening the paper and feeling like all of your hard work is paying off because you know what to do. Visualizing yourself with positive emotions associated with that thought of the exam hall will genuinely help you feel less nervous during the exam, and you can perform way better due to this. Because let's be honest, sitting in an exam hall with hundreds of other students, under time pressure, not being able to speak to anyone, it's daunting. It's daunting for everyone. But just follow the advice that I've given you, and I'm sure you guys will do super, super well. You've got time, you've got this, go make it count. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible. See you in the next one. Alright, so as a quick personal update on this channel and where I've been going, where I've been the past few months, honestly year 13 has just been so busy and I have not found the time to make many videos. But a lot of you guys have been asking me where I've applied for university, and you might be curious as to what the decisions were. I've got all 5 of my decisions back. So I will be sharing those with you in due course, not quite yet, but whatever happens, whatever I decide, I will be sharing it with you guys soon, and I'll be taking you along with me on that journey. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.